Breaking news! The Baltimore Ravens fan base just experienced one of the most shocking twists of this entire offseason, and if you've been following everything closely, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For a brief moment, it felt like the Ravens had just pulled off one of the boldest moves in franchise history. The excitement was real, the anticipation was building, and Ravens fans everywhere were already imagining what this defense would look like with one of the most relentless pass rushers in the entire NFL joining the squad. But just as quickly as that dream appeared, it disappeared. Everything started when the news broke that the Ravens had agreed to trade for Max Crosby, and not just any trade. We're talking about a move involving not one, but 2 first-round picks. That alone was enough to shock people across the league because historically the Baltimore Ravens simply do not operate like that. Giving up a single first-round pick is already rare for this organization, but 2, that's the kind of aggressive move that immediately makes the entire NFL stop and pay attention. Fans instantly started picturing what this team could become. Think about it for a second. The Ravens already have Lamar Jackson leading the offense, widely considered by many to be the best quarterback in the world. In the backfield, you have Derrick Henry, one of the most dominant running backs the league has seen over the past decade. And on the defensive side, you've got super-duper Kyle anchoring the secondary. Now imagine adding a relentless edge rusher like Max Crosby into that mix. The idea alone made it feel like Baltimore was building something truly terrifying for opposing offenses. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Reports even indicated that Crosby had already flown to Baltimore. He was in the city, posting stories, and fans were already embracing the idea that his personality, his energy, and his relentless motor would fit perfectly with the Ravens' culture. The vibe felt right. It felt like one of those rare moments where a player and a team are just meant to be together. But then everything changed. The Baltimore Ravens backed out of the trade. Just like that, the move was gone. The deal that had everyone buzzing lasted only a few days before it completely collapsed. According to reports, the reason came down to one critical step in every NFL trade, the physical examination. Max Crosby did not pass his physical with the Baltimore Ravens, which meant the organization decided it could not move forward with the deal based on the medical results. And when news like that drops, you can imagine the reaction across the Ravens flock. Fans went from excitement to confusion almost instantly. Many started asking the same questions. What exactly showed up in the medical evaluation? Was the concern related to his recent injury history? Or was there something the Ravens doctors discovered that simply made the risk too high? Adding even more tension to the situation, the Las Vegas Raiders released a statement making it clear that the Ravens were the ones who backed out of the agreement. Meanwhile, Baltimore had not immediately provided a detailed public explanation, which only fueled more speculation across the league. And this situation has layers. Because if you followed Ravens history long enough, you know this isn't the first time a deal has collapsed after a failed physical. Back in 2018, Baltimore had a contract agreement with wide receiver Ryan Grant that was voided after he failed his physical. There was also a similar situation involving Michael Brockers years ago. Even earlier than that, the team once rescinded a deal involving safety Brock Marion because of a shoulder issue. But this situation feels different. Those previous moments didn't involve trading away 2 first-round picks for a superstar pass rusher. This one had massive implications not only for the Ravens roster, but potentially for the way other teams view negotiations with Baltimore moving forward. And here's where things get even more interesting. Around the league, executives and fans will now be watching very closely to see what happens next with Max Crosby. Because if another team trades for him and he passes their physical without any issue, the narrative around this entire situation could shift dramatically. It would raise questions about how Baltimore evaluated the medical reports and whether the Ravens were perhaps more cautious than other teams might be willing to be. On the other hand, if Crosby remains with the Raiders or if teams hesitate to pursue him because of the same medical concerns, then Baltimore's decision may ultimately look like a smart move that avoided a huge long-term risk. Right now, one thing is certain, this entire episode has become one of the most unusual offseason stories the Ravens have been involved in. Just days ago, fans were imagining Max Crosby wearing purple and black and terrorizing quarterbacks at M&T Bank Stadium. Now, he's back with the Raiders, at least for the moment, and the Ravens move forward with their 2 first-round picks back in their pocket. But the story might not be over yet, because the next move involving Max Crosby could completely change how this whole situation is remembered in Baltimore. Continuing the report, because what happens next could shape how Ravens fans remember this entire moment for years. Right now the entire NFL is essentially waiting to see the next move involving Max Crosby. The trade collapsing after the physical has already created a wave of reactions around the league, and insiders know that situations like this can ripple far beyond just one team. When a deal involving 2 first-round picks falls apart at the last moment, every front office starts paying attention. Remember, Crosby was already in Baltimore. He had reportedly arrived at the Ravens facility, meeting with coaches and preparing to begin what looked like the next chapter of his career. The expectation was that he would soon be wearing purple and black, getting introduced to the locker room, and becoming a centerpiece of this defense. Instead, after the medical testing was completed, the Ravens organization determined they simply could not move forward with the trade based on the results they saw. And that's where the uncertainty begins. Because from a football standpoint, the idea of adding Max Crosby made perfect sense for Baltimore. The Ravens are always looking for ways to strengthen their pass rush, and Crosby has built a reputation as one of the most relentless defenders in the league. His motor, his production, and his intensity are exactly the type of traits that normally fit the Ravens' defensive identity. That's why the excitement among fans exploded so quickly when the original report surfaced. The move looked like a statement that Baltimore was ready to push all the chips toward the center of the table and build a roster capable of making a serious Super Bowl run. But the medical evaluation changed everything. What makes this story even more fascinating is the timing. The Raiders had reportedly already begun operating under the assumption that the deal would be finalized. Their front office was preparing for the reality of gaining 2 first-round picks across future drafts and adjusting their salary structure accordingly. That means when the Ravens backed out of the agreement, it didn't just affect Baltimore, it also forced Las Vegas to quickly readjust its own plans. And now the entire situation hangs in this strange limbo. Crosby remains a Raider for the moment, but the door is still open for other teams to explore a potential trade. Front offices around the league will now look at the situation and ask the same question. Are the Ravens being overly cautious, or did their medical staff uncover something that other teams should also be worried about? That question is going to determine everything. If another team eventually trades for Crosby and their doctors clear him without hesitation, the conversation around this situation will explode again. Fans will start wondering if Baltimore walked away from a superstar who could have transformed the defense. Every sack Crosby records in the future could reopen the debate. But if teams hesitate to trade for him because of the same medical concerns, the Ravens' decision might start to look like a calculated move that protected the franchise from a massive risk. And here's something else worth thinking about. Baltimore has built its reputation over decades on being one of the most disciplined organizations in football. They rarely make reckless moves, especially when it comes to the future of the roster. Giving up 2 first-round picks would have been one of the most aggressive trades the franchise has ever made. Walking away from that deal after the physical shows just how seriously the organization takes long-term roster decisions. At the same time, you can't ignore how rare this moment feels. It's not often that fans go from celebrating a blockbuster trade to seeing it disappear almost overnight. The emotional roller coaster has been real. One moment Ravens fans were imagining Max Crosby chasing quarterbacks in Baltimore, and the next moment the deal was completely gone. And that's why this story isn't finished yet, because the next chapter depends entirely on what happens across the rest of the league. Will another team step forward and take the risk? Will Crosby remain with the Raiders? Or will this situation evolve into one of those what-if stories that Ravens fans talk about for years? The answers are coming soon, and when they do, they could completely reshape how this offseason is remembered. But now I want to hear from you, Ravens fans. If you were in charge of the Ravens front office and saw concerning medical results during the physical, would you have made the same decision to cancel the trade? Or would you have still taken the risk to bring Max Crosby to Baltimore? And before you leave, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video if you're part of the Ravens flock, and check out the next video appearing on your screen right now because we're going to keep breaking down every major move surrounding the Baltimore Ravens.